Good afternoon and welcome back. I would like to begin this afternoon's session by introducing our next speaker, Tanguy Gahouma-Bekale, Chair of the UNFCCC African Group of Negotiators and Advisor to the President, Permanent Secretary, National Climate Council for Gabon. As Chair of the African Group of Negotiators on Climate Change since January 2020, he represents the interests of the 54 African countries in the international climate change negotiations, including COP26, with a collective and unified voice. I now invite Tanguy Gahouma-Bekale to speak to the summit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dear parliamentary delegate, honourable guests, ladies and gentlemen, I think that this is, for us, a Churchillian time that we have now. We are in one of the most challenging times of our world, but this time the fight we are leading is against our bad habits. The COP26, which is currently happening in Glasgow, is critical in the implementation of the Paris Agreement and ensuring that countries undertake the most efficient measure to limit the increase of the temperature below 1.5 degrees Celsius. This had been 2 years that the world has been waiting to meet physically, and even though the COVID-19 is still very present, I congratulate the British government in terms of the organization of this very important event. On today's topic and the question of this session, to respond to this interesting question about the ingredient for a successful COP26 and how this COP, how Glasgow can shape the future. I think that the first ingredient is science. This COP is maybe the first COP where we need that all our work can be based on science. A few months ago, the Ipcc, the Intergovernmental Panel of Experts on Climate Change, released its sixth climate assessment and prompted the United States, the UN, to issue a code red for humanity. The predicted global warming of 1.5 degrees Celsius and also the target of 2 degrees Celsius will be exceeded during the 21st century unless significant reduction in CO2 and other GHG emission gases are made in the coming decade. This alert is a powerful warning of things and disasters to come. Consequently, now is the time for the world to take bold action, which has never been more necessary. So, I would like to highlight or underline some of the main conclusions of the Ipcc report. The first one is that we face an inadequacy of measures taken by countries to reduce greenhouse gas emission. The second is that the 2013 deadline has the point of no return if strong and radical measures are not taken. And the third one is the unavoidable effect of climate change that we must be prepared for. And the last and the most important that this report said is that humans are clearly responsible for the increase of greenhouse gas emission and, of course, for climate change. So these mounting challenges posed by the adverse effect of climate change, including drought, flood, land degradation, desertification, deforestation, loss of biodiversity, may pose additional severe challenges to achieve the target set out in the UNFCCC and the Paris Agreement, but also in other international agreements like the Sustainable Development Goal. Honourable guests, to respond to this question about how to have a successful COP26, the first point, as I say, was the recognition and the acknowledgement of the science. The second, I think, is that we can have a clear long-term target now, a clear long-term goal, and in the full respect of the Paris Agreement. In this, we have, I think, three important issues in terms of this ambition. The first is ambition on adaptation. The second is ambition on mitigation, and of course, the last one is ambition on finance. So the spirit of the Paris Agreement is based on the equal importance of these three important issues. On mitigation, if I can start with mitigation. In mitigation, we know that the target is now the 2 degrees Celsius that we agreed. It's the 1.5 degrees Celsius target that we need to follow. But we are out of this trajectory. If we follow the trajectory that came from all parties under this process, we will raise a 2.7 degrees Celsius target. And the most vulnerable region, Africa, the small island, and the LDC's country, will face more than other countries all the consequences of climate change. So this is the first thing. We need to increase our mitigation target. We need to go to 1.5. For that, it's clear that we need to take strong action, for example, on deforestation. We need to stop clearly the deforestation. We need to end with some fossil fuels like coal, and this COP want to send this signal to the world that we want to put fossil fuels out of our trajectory of development. Another ingredient, another sub-ingredient of this ambition ingredient is the 100 billion target that we talk about since 11 years now, since Copenhagen. So on the 100 billion target, this COP needs to achieve, first to acknowledge the failure to achieve this target, but most importantly is to set a new goal, in long-term on finance, because the 100 billion was a political commitment, something to build trust between parties, but this amount was not based on science. It's just a commitment to say that developing nation, rich nation, recognize that this situation is their responsibility and they want to help to support developing countries. But now we need to base this amount on science. From 2025, we need to set a new goal on finance, and this goal needs to be based on the real needs that the world, that the planet need to recover from this situation. So the first assessment that we have for this new goal on finance, it's about tenfold what we have now. So we probably need 1 trillion or 1.5 trillion to face climate change. So we need that all the energy that we have, all our finance flow go into the direction of climate change. So this is important if you want to give a future to the next generation. We cannot continue the same way, and we need to take strong action on that. I think also that Glasgow needs to launch a very important work. It's on global goal on adaptation. Everybody talks about adaptation. We try to lead, African group try to lead some negotiation on the global goal to say that we need to understand what is the adaptation. For now, we just have some adaptation in the finance. So we say that we need a good adaptation in finance. So we say that the funding that we have need to serve both adaptation and mitigation. So we have a balance of 50-50%. But we don't know what is the real goal on adaptation. We don't know what we need to reach in terms of adaptation. So we want that this COP can start this work. What is adaptation? What is for the world the adaptation need? And how to track our progress, how to assess our common progress in terms of adaptation. Because if we don't know if we need to put 1 million or 100 million on adaptation, we just put some money. But if we don't have any clear target on adaptation, it's just some money, some support without any way of assess it or to know if we are on progress or not. So this is also something very important that Glasgow can achieve, to give some space for parties to work on the global goal adaptation. I think, so the first ingredient can be science, the second can be all these global goals that we need to have in terms of finance and mitigation and adaptation, and I think that the third can be on NDCs, because NDCs are maybe the most concrete action that parties can take under this process. So we need to have more NDCs, more ambitious NDCs, and we really need to see that these NDCs are linked to this global goal. So we have the science with target, we have the science, after that we need to have some clear target, and we need that NDC fit into this different target and build something, some plan, some roadmap for all countries, for all regions, and then we can follow that action per action. So this is important, and from now, NDCs are really out of the Paris Agreement. We are really far from what we agreed in 2015 in Paris. We are really far from the Paris Agreement, and because NDCs are nationally determined, so there is no pressure to country to come on track. So we hope clearly that Glasgow, with the World Leaders Summit that happened the 2 days at the opening of this COP, that Glasgow can send this signal to the world that we need to have a new round of NDC more in line with the ambition of the Paris Agreement, more in line with everything that sounds give us in terms of information. So this is also, I think, a very important message that Glasgow can send to the world. I think the last ingredient, if I may, it's in terms of transparency. African countries, we are not very strong in transparency because of lack of capacity and all these things, but we really believe that we cannot do all these things without a strong and robust framework for transparency. We need to see, to have table, to have a clear understanding, to have a clear communication on how each party track and report all their effort and support under the convention. So for us, this is mandatory. We need that everybody, every country, every nation can provide information on a regular basis. So 2 years maybe, or if we can 1 year, because NDCs are a 5-year period. But during the 5-year period, we need also to continue to work, and only a very robust transparency framework can help us to follow the effort of all nations during this period. So maybe I can conclude just with that, just to say that this is the 4 ingredients that I can share with you. And in this regard, I think that Glasgow is the ultimate opportunity to ensure coherence between the international commitment, the political announcement, and the concrete action on climate. I would like to thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Can I ask if any delegates have questions that they would like to put to Tanguy this afternoon? Any questions? I'll just... Oh, thank you. Rosa Galvez, Senator.
Yes. So earlier we heard from Sephora Berman that in the Ipcc reports, the word of oil, gas, or coal are never mentioned. And this is, as she pointed out, 86% of the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere that are trapped today come from these sources. I know the Ipcc was founded in '88, and it's 20 years ago or more, and that Exxon had their models on climate warming since the 70s. So now we say with 99.9 unequivocally that human activities are the cause. Can you please explain why these white gloves, and very diplomatic language, it's in this report? Because, as everybody's saying, we need to increase the pace and work much faster. Thank you.
I'd like to respond. Thank you.
Very difficult question. I think the change that the world needs in terms of climate change is so huge that it cannot be parachuted. So you can see that in the Paris Agreement, the only sector clearly mentioned in the Paris Agreement is forest on the Article 5. There is no other sector in the Paris Agreement. If you see what happened during the last COP, it's all these commitments on fossil fuels are out of the framework of Ipcc. And this is, I think, the will of countries. They want to have their own space to take action on that. They don't want that they can be committed under the Ipcc on that, because it's a question of sovereignty, it's a question of real development. So, for example, during this COP, we'll have a statement from all, I think, 80 or 100 countries on the end of coal. But this is not under the Ipcc process. So it will be political, with a strong political support, but it will be not mandatory for parties to stop that. So one option is that we can give this responsibility to the private sector, because the private sector follow guidelines, follow international guidelines. So one of the main steps that we achieve is that a very important part of all the private sector, from bank, insurance, don't want to fund fossil fuels. So this is maybe the first step, that we stop the funding on all fossil fuels. We know that during the last years, the G20 country put 500 billion for oil and all these things. So there is a clear move in the good direction, but the effort is so huge, and it's not under the convention. This discussion is the same for CORSIA, for the flight, for the maritime sector. It's the same thing. They are away of the convention. We are not able to talk about all these issues under the convention, because this sector are a core element of the development of the world. So this discussion is not on their hand, and it's like that. I'm so very sorry.
Thank you. Do we have any further questions? Parliament of Bangladesh.
Yeah. Thank you. I just like to ask about a different topic. In Bangladesh, we are having huge internal displacement due to climate change, because people from coastal area actually had to abandon their home for loss of livelihoods and everything. And as a leader of the Climate Vulnerable Forum, Bangladesh actually trying to take this movement forward about this climate-induced migration, internal and external also. And as far as I know, Africa is also having this kind of problem. So my question is like, what are your thoughts about this climate-induced migration, to mainstream it and also link it to the burning issue of climate justice? Thank you.
Thank you. Tanguy.
Thank you. Thank you. Another very political question. In Africa, we are very concerned about the migration, the climate migration. For countries like my own country, like Gabon, we have I think we have 2 million inhabitants, small population with a very big country with a lot of resources, and we are near from us. We have a lot of Sahel country with desert and desertification process, loss of biodiversity that already happened. So we already know that if the situation becomes worse, they need to go somewhere. And they have only two options. The first one is to go to Europe, maybe, and the second one is to go in Africa, to Africa and other countries. So this is also a challenge that we have. There is no solution on that. And we need really to raise this issue under the UN system, under the UNFCCC system, because it will become real for a lot of countries in the next year. So there is no discussion on that for the moment, but it's clear that we need to have some space to discuss about this climate justice, about this climate refugee that will happen in the next year. Thank you.
Go to the Parliament of the Ivory Coast.
Ok, je voudrais dire merci à Tanguy pour sa brillante exposition. Dans ce qu'il disait, il a mis en exergue le rôle de l'homme dans la dégradation de la nature et donc du bouleversement climatique. Nous devons donc travailler tous à contribuer à une atténuation, donc à au moins 1%. Ce que je voudrais dire, c'est que nous, dans nos pays sous-développés, chez moi par exemple en Côte d'Ivoire, nous avons une politique qu'on appelle cacao-forêt, c'est-à-dire comment planter, faire la cacaoculture au sein de la forêt et ne pas détruire la forêt et la reboiser en même temps. Et donc, voyez-vous que les pays développés qui achètent le cacao chez nous sont très pointus sur cette question. Et donc, ils sont regardants. Si nous n'observons pas cette manière de travailler, il est fort possible que notre cacao soit dévalué, par exemple, sur le marché international. Donc, ils ont un moyen de pression pour que nous puissions travailler en vue de pouvoir normaliser la situation, nous, à notre niveau. Cependant, nous, qu'avons-nous comme pression? Surtout que ce sont eux qui sont les premiers à pouvoir mobiliser ces 100 milliards de dollars en vue de travailler dans le financement de cette science qui peut nous permettre de vivre mieux dans notre planète. Qu'est-ce que nous avons comme moyen pour agir ou pour réagir? Je vous remercie.
Thank you. Tanguy.
This is a good question about the deforestation process in Africa. The situation in Africa is very different. It's really far away from other regions because in Africa a lot of countries are not yet emergent. They are not yet on the good road. But we need to face other issues. We are not in energy transition and all these things. We try to give food to population. We try to have food security, to eradicate poverty. And the example from Ivory Coast, it's clearly that they need to find an economic resources to continue their way on development. And for that, they try first to deforest, to have cacao. But then with the new technology, they try now to plant cacao on their trees. But this is also about technology transfer. This is also one important item under the negotiation that we have. How to help, to support countries like Ivory Coast to continue to sell their cacao to the world and to be maybe net zero in terms of deforestation. And it's funny, but I think that one interesting thing is to add value to what they do. And to add value, it's simple that maybe if they don't have the need to send cacao, brut cacao without transformation out their country, and if they can have more factories, more to transform this cacao locally, so they can have more, they can add value to this cacao. And if they have more value at a national level, if they are allowed to transform cacao in their own country, they can have value, they can deforest less because they will have more money to develop themselves. So here it's also a question of technology and support, capacity building. So this is also two main thematic that we have under the convention: the capacity building, the technology transfer, how to support developing countries to continue on their pathway to development, how we can be flexible with this developing country, because they are not responsible about the situation. They face some very big challenges in terms of eradicate poverty, so they need to continue in that way. So how we can support them to continue on their development, but with sustainable means. So this is also a question that we are dealing with in this negotiation.
Thank you very much. Due to timing, we will have to draw this session to a close, so I would ask that you join me in thanking Tanguy Gahouma-Bekale for his contribution this afternoon. Thank you very much.